From Toronto to Tokyo, and from Thonia to Syrinx, this is The Basement, your companion to the Ready Player One novel. Join our hosts each episode for complete chapter breakdowns and deep dives into the pop culture references through a series of challenges and homework assignments. The Basement is the Ready Player One podcast for people who love things. And now, please welcome Albert and the rest of the Gunchers for this week's episode. Hello, Gunchers, and welcome to The Basement. You've made it to another bonus stage episode where tonight we're going to be covering two legendary movies in the slasher film genre, Halloween 1 and its sequel, Halloween 2. My name is Albert Padilla, and I felt it was only appropriate that because we'd be talking about a character who had the blackest eyes, the devil's eyes, it was only fitting that we invite Earglue Media's very own creator and producer, Mike Rondo. Mike, welcome to the show.
Well, that's not the only thing I have in common with Michael Myers.
Well,
we do share this.
We're going to get to that.
I'll leave it. All right, sorry, I'm jumping this.
No.
It's been a while since I've been on The Basement. I forgot how it works, other than it's 5 hours long. I forget, but go ahead.
Yeah. No, hopefully this will only come in about 2-3 hours. But
good.
No,
good.
So I want to say welcome back to The Basement is what I was really wanting to say there. But let's jump into it, because not only do you and Michael Myers share the exact same first name, but there's something else that you guys share. Would you care to share with the audience what you share?
Well, we share the same birthday, October 19th. Different year, but still there's that connection.
Not far away, though.
Yeah, no, we're only off by a decade or two or something like that. Yeah, 57, I think it was. Yeah. So, it was an interesting thing. And I didn't know about that till later on when I got older. I didn't know until, I think, around 97-ish, when the interweb was a thing and you could look things up. And I was like, oh, wow. And then, of course, when Resurrection came out and the guy in the cell there says Michael Myers born October 19th, 1957, I was like, confirmation. It's actually true. So it was awesome.
Right. So growing up, was this... So wait a minute. So on your Facebook page, you have Michael Myers, do you not, as your avatar, your little profile pic right now?
I do, because there's a special meaning to that picture. That was taken back in 2004.
Okay.
And my girlfriend at the time, who is now my wife, invited me to her Halloween party, and I needed a Halloween costume. And, I decided, why not go with Michael Myers? I even actually had a real kitchen knife, too. You probably shouldn't have done that, back while I'm looking at it. I'm surprised I didn't get arrested. But I only lived down the street from her at the time, so it all worked out. So there's that whole connection with even my wife and stuff. So there is an old photo of me dressed as Michael Myers, her sitting on my lap wearing a French-made uniform thing. Oh, yeah. Michael Myers gets a little freakish, But anyway, enough of that. But
so that picture then is you. That's where I was going with this.
Oh,
so
that's
that
me.
picture that you've got is actually you.
Oh, yeah.
In that costume.
Oh, that is me, sir. Yeah, I remember doing that up, and it took me a week to do, really, because I was hunting things down. Well, it was the overalls that I was looking for, the jumpsuit thing. I couldn't find the Dickies that fit me, which was the funniest thing. But in any case, so I got the mask and all was well, and it was fun. So yes, I'm kind of a bit of a Michael Myers geek. I wouldn't say I'm an uber fan, like the typical, like the horror fan type person, but I loved Halloween. I liked Michael Myers, and yeah, as you know, one of the things that I'm interested in, and maybe it might creep some of our listeners out, or your listeners, is I serial killers are kind of a thing that I follow for some odd reason. I don't know.
You mean physically follow them?
No,
right?
No. I don't want to get that close. But in any case, I've always had a fascination when the human mind kind of is, I guess, for lack of a better term, broken or is evil in a sense. So Michael Myers is kind of like the poster child for that in movies, and I just cling to that, and Jason and Freddy, which we'll get to at some point. But and the funny thing is, growing up, I actually preferred Jason over Michael because I was into hockey back then, and I thought Jason was just cool. He had a hockey mask, a goalie mask like me, and I was a goalie, so I went with it. But as I got older, like I said, in around 95 and 97 and all that stuff, I started learning more about Halloween and everything. And I appreciated it a little bit more, and I kind of went with Michael. That's just the way it was.
No, that's crazy. We'll come back to that in a second, because I do want to talk about how we got into these movies and that sort of thing. Because my experience is very similar, believe it or not.
Oh, really?
My name is Michael, and I was born on October. Just in terms of.
Oh, well, I didn't know I didn't have the real Michael Myers on here.
Nope, not this is the real one.
Yeah.
But no, again, like you. Well, let's just talk about it real quickly. But like you, growing up, I had seen this was the first horror movie I'd ever seen, kind of a slasher film. And even though it didn't really click with me, I jumped and latched on to Friday the 13th, and then I went through a Freddy Krueger phase. And it wasn't until late high school, and right out of high school, maybe early college, that I started getting into the Michael Myers films or the Halloween films. And I've come to like them more for whatever reason. I mean, it's, they're not all of them are very good. Most of them are terrible. But all things considered, for whatever reason, this one resonates with me. I don't know. Maybe we'll get into that in a little bit. But
I would have to say because it's more grounded and real, in a sense. When you're older, like I said, when I was in '95 after I graduated high school and stuff, and you see it for what it really is, and when you're looking at it, it's not the over the top. And I think when you're a kid, you enjoy that over the top craziness of Freddy and that gory, bloody with Jason, because it's over the top, it's gross, but it's not real. This, on the other hand, as cheesy as some of the effects are and everything with Michael and everything, you don't see a lot of the blood. There's not a lot of blood in it, but that's more realistic. And the idea of a killer lurking outside your home, cutting the phone lines and coming in and slashing you is a real possibility. Unlike Freddy getting you in your nightmares and, Jason being over the top. Now, granted, when we get to the season of the witch and everything else after that, it kind of goes in a direction where Michael's, supernatural, and that's kind of, but anyway, we'll move on from there, I guess.
Yeah. All right, well, let's do this. We'll come back to talking a little bit more about them. But just to recap, so first off, Halloween is not mentioned anywhere in the Ready Player One novel, nor is it mentioned in the movie. We get Friday the 13th with Jason in the movie. He's not in the book at all, and then obviously Freddy Krueger's not in there. But I just felt like it was, I was kind of debating when we were first talking about doing the bonus stage about whether or not we would do originally it was going to be like a Halloween versus Friday the 13th versus Nightmare on Elm Street, and then I thought, well, let's just focus on Friday the 13th character since he was in the movie. But I just felt like, let's just start with Halloween. It is Halloween. It was apart from Psycho, it was the movie that kind of kicked off this kind of slasher franchise, at least for the main market. There had been indie films prior to that, and low budget films that had always been around. But yeah, so that's where we are. And then, maybe with the years that go on, because God knows I'll be doing the show for the next 15 at some point.
Easy. That's half the book. You've gotten half done by then. After that,
15 years, we'll get the halfway mark.
Yeah.
But maybe we'll come back and revisit the more in depth with either the sequels or Friday the 13th or some of the other ones. But so Halloween 1978, it was directed by John Carpenter. It was co-written by Deborah Hill, who was his girlfriend. They had met on Assault on Precinct 13 back in 1976, somewhere around there. Yeah. And so they were boyfriend and girlfriend. They decided to kind of write the movie Halloween. And originally, so it starred Donald Pleasance. So we've talked about him before. He was in THX 1138 and a ton of other movies, but he plays Dr. Sam Loomis. We've got Jamie Lee Curtis in her film debut as Laurie Strode. And then we've got Nick Castle as Michael Myers. And Nick Castle, if you guys remember on one of the episodes we talked about The Last Starfighter, he actually went on to go on and direct a number of films, one of which was The Last Starfighter in 1984. So I want to start really just with the cast itself, because Donald Pleasance, he was in I want to say he was in almost every one of these movies, even, and I don't know, well, he's not in the most recent, but he was
mentioned,
yeah.
And Laurie,
as the character Loomis, or?
Well, the character. And Laurie makes a good comment with the current psychologist, which is funny. If you've seen it, I'm not going to say, we'll talk about it later, but go ahead.
Yeah, we'll come back to it. But Donald Pleasance, so he's been in, I counted, over 140 movies in his career. And honestly, apart from You Only Live Twice, which came out in 1967, the James Bond film, THX 1138, and then Escape from New York, this is what he's known as. He's always been the Halloween guy. Is this his mark? Do you feel like this is all he'll be known for?
Yeah, I think so. And anyone who remembers him from the earlier stuff that he did is probably gone on to the great gig in the sky, so to speak. So, and maybe that's sad, but I got to be honest. I think most actors or actresses would, if they would kill to have one role to be memorized for all of eternity, right? So I don't think he ever had a problem with it because he kept going back to do the movies. You know what I mean? So I think he was comfortable with it. I never really read up on what his real feelings were about it for some reason, other than the fact that I know Loomis is probably the worst psychologist on the planet.
Oh, he's terrible.
Oh, he's awful.
He's a nutcase himself.
Yes, he's basically one shade saner than Michael. Well, I mean, he's telling the officer, like, we got a madman out on the loose, but let's not tell anyone. Maybe we should probably tell somebody because he killed someone in Halloween, his own sister, long ago. Maybe we should kind of, alarm everyone, but nope, we got to ignore that. But anyway.
Oh, yeah, we'll get to the most egregious death by Loomis, which is the poor sap that gets smashed between a vehicle and a van and then burns to death in Halloween, too.
Oh, yeah, the guy that was playing him.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
They just walk away like no big deal.
We're not going to charge Loomis. No, but I will say this. I loved Loomis's character. It's only recently that you realize that he was horrible. Well, I mean, when I get older, I realized he was horrible, but I still liked the character. Like, I liked, and I even liked that he was all about the character in the sense he kept coming back and playing it. You couldn't have anyone else play that character. It's like having someone play Laurie. It just doesn't work. But
right, yeah, and so he was the main guy, and we'll talk about the Rob Zombie films and all that here too in a little bit. But let's move on to let's talk about Jamie Lee Curtis, because again, this was her film debut. She had I think she was on a TV show or something at the time, and this was the first movie that she was pulled in for. But again, I'm going to ask the same question: is this what she'll be always known for, or is it True Lies, or is it Activa Yogurt? I mean, what?
It's hard to say. I think it depends on which generation it is. Our generation, I would assume it's Halloween. The recent generation, like my daughter, would probably say she's the Activia lady. Someone maybe a little younger than us, like Joe from Discord, would probably see the True Lies sort of thing. Although Joe knows a lot about Halloween too, so it's hard to say because even like the generation that's a few years younger than us, kind of Halloween's timeless. You know what I mean? So they grew up with it as well. And that's kind of going to continue now, especially now with the new one that came out. So I think, at the end of the day, I would say this will be her most memorable role. And there's nothing wrong with that. She seems to have embraced it over the time.
Oh, for sure.
It reminds me of like maybe Mark Hamill and Carrie Fisher in the sense like they were sick of it for a while. And then they kind of realized it is kind of special and they kind of embrace it and have fun with it. And don't take it so serious, but they still happy about it. And, God, it made a life for them. So, right. So it's not that bad.
Yeah, absolutely. And she is known as the Scream Queen. So
correct.
After this movie, she went on to do The Fog, Prom Night, Terror Train. I mean, she was just making her mark in the horror film industry at that point. And she really was the kind of prototype for the stupid teenager that we would see, through the rest of these movies, obviously this franchise, but then
I don't think she was a stupid teenager. Her friends were, but she was just the innocent, naive, and then she grew up really, really quick.
Yeah, she did. And all I meant by stupid teenager was just the whole kind of whining and that kind of thing. And then they just kind of ran with it. It became the other series. Yeah, they really just took off with that thing.
Yeah, totally. I'm going to say totally through the whole thing. Go ahead.
And she, just as a quick couple of things about her, trivia-wise, married to Christopher Guest. She is a really good friends with Sigourney Weaver, and she's the godmother of Jake Gyllenhaal.
Yes.
So that was something I recently had no idea about.
I didn't either until I found out that he begged her to do the new Halloween, so to speak, on a trail. He hunted her down and said, do it. And she kind of agreed to it. I mean, how could you say no to Jake's face, right?
Right. It's the puppy dog face.
Yeah.
She's also the daughter of Janet Leigh, who is the star of 1960s Psycho.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of she's kind of horror royalty, for lack of a better term there. Also an avid player of World of Warcraft, which is interesting enough. And she's also got a patent for diapers. So
I'm not surprised by any of this, to be honest. I'm really like
nothing
surprises me at all when you find out certain things about people. You're like, yeah, I could kind of see that.
Yeah, she's got this patent where like you can put baby wipes in a pocket in the diaper itself, which I don't really get, and I don't know.
That's kind of messy if you think about it.
Yeah. Whatever.
Yeah.
Hey, it's one more patent than I've got. So
well, that is true.
And then obviously we mentioned Nick Castle. So Nick Castle and John Carpenter were buddies in college, and he was paid $25 a day to play Michael Myers. And I have to say, like, having seen all of these movies, and I haven't seen the most recent one as you have, but he, to me, just his physical presence, Nick Castle's physical presence is really Michael Myers. I don't really care for the other ones, especially when you get to Halloween 2. And I don't have the actor's name. I forget now. And it's not a slight against him, but there's just something about the way his presence is on screen in the very first Halloween that I think is frightening. More so later on, it becomes more gimmicky and comical, I guess.
Well, that's when it sold itself and it didn't have its. It's funny. It started this genre, and then people, other podcasters and stuff have said this. It started following the other slashes like Friday the 13th and everything else, and getting over the top and being kind of wacky and taking away from what it really was. Nick Castle, I agree. I don't like the fact. I like the fact that he's, if you're looking at him, it's like a normal guy, like me or you or whatever. Not this big hulking guy like Joe from Discord. He's just a normal guy, and that's what's scary about it. He was just a normal guy. Well, who knows what's underneath that mask and those black eyes? You don't know what's going on there, but that was more frightening, that it was a normal looking. If you looked at him, like, oh, it's a normal shape of a figure. It's not this big looming, hulking guy, Rob Zombie, looking at you, and stuff like that. So I think that was more frightening, and I think the mannerisms is important. It's almost like, when you do C-3PO, there's only one person who can really pull it off, type of stuff. It's those little nuances that matter, and he was in one particular scene in the new movie, which was kind of important when they explained it to you later, like when you find out about it later. And I won't spoil anything for you or anyone, but when you find out, I'll tell you maybe later on. It's pretty cool that moment was the moment that Nick was there. And of course, the new guy is playing him, and I think he did a pretty good job, if I do say so myself.
Nice. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. So, all right, so let's go back to kind of reminiscing about how we came into these movies. This was, for me, Halloween 1. I actually saw Halloween 2 first. I didn't see the sequel, the original first. And I caught part 2 late at night, like on Showtime, HBO. And I came in halfway through the movie, and I was like, I had to have been maybe, I don't know, 9, 10 years old at most when this thing came out. And every time that movie came on again on Showtime, I was there watching it. So I watched part 2 a number of times. And then when part 3 came out, I watched that. And I remember really liking part 3. And we can get into that a little bit later. But I was really confused as to where the heck Michael Myers went in the series.
See, after like part 2, it kind of goes off like He-Man and just throws everything in the kitchen sink and kind of just, we all go with it. The funny thing is, I enjoy all of them with the exception of the Rob Zombie stuff, and we'll get into that later. It's not that it's bad. It's just I didn't like but anyway. It's just, I enjoy all of them, even like 3, 4, and 4, 5, and 6. It's kind of its own trilogy and its own thing, and I liked it. It wasn't. It's different, and it's kind of like a different take on what was originally planned. But I never had a problem with it. But continue, sir. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to throw you off.
No, it's fine. So that was kind of how I came into it. But the one thing that always stood out to me was the music itself, right? The Halloween theme,
of course,
which I think is awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just super creepy. It's there's stories out there where John Carpenter had a lot of inspiration from the Exorcist song, and that's where it kind of stemmed from. But that was the one thing that when I heard that music, it always, scared the bejesus out of me growing up as a kid. But I would have to say, overall, this is a franchise that I think is probably my favorite of the big three, the Holy Trinity or the Evil Trinity, if you will, for horror, like slasher films in the 80s. And again, I really do. I didn't even mind when they started getting into 4, 5, and 6, when they're getting into, Samhain and the witchcraft and, the curse of the thorn and all, a thorn curse or whatever the heck that was. I was all into that stuff, and, don't mind watching those again. I can sit down and watch all those just fine and not have a problem with them. So I really do like the series.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But let's do this. So let's talk about the movie itself. Let's start with Halloween 1. And we're not going to dissect every single aspect of this. I just want to kind of hit on the plot points, the major plot points.
And the non-plot points.
Or lack thereof. But the first movie it's a very interesting movie because it is, even part 2 is it's different. It's not really the same kind of film. This one is more voyeuristic in terms of, even with the opening shot where we get, Michael Myers as a kid putting on the mask and we can kind of see everything through his eyes. We've got a held camera, right? It's not on tracks or anything else. And all of that kind of plays into that eeriness piece of it, or the eeriness of it all, the kind of what you were speaking to earlier, where you kind of feel like this really is something that could happen. It's based in reality. But then I kind of skipped over something. Hold on, let me go back.
Okay.
The pumpkin at the very beginning.
Oh yeah.
You're
definitely gonna like the new version that in the beginning. It's cool.
Oh, yeah?
It's cool. I like
All
it.
right.
I got really excited when I saw it. But continue. Yeah, back to
it was years and years, probably until about maybe 4 or 5 years ago, that I realized that in that opening scene, as the camera is panning in on the pumpkin, it finally stops, and it stops on the eye and the nose. And if you look closely, it's supposed to be a picture of Michael Myers holding a kitchen knife. Did you know this?
The knife thing I could see. I never even thought of it or looked at it. I'm going to have to look at it.
So go back and watch it.
I will.
Yeah. I had no idea. And when I ever watched this movie, and I always wondered, why did they go from, like, because they cut the mouth out and then they trail up to the nose instead of just picking the knife up and cutting out a triangle.
Yeah.
And it's because they are trying to make that look like a blade.
Yeah. Well, the nose looks like a blade. Yeah. It's got that slash in it. So, and you're going to like the new version when you go see the movie. I'll say that.
I can't wait.
Yeah. At the beginning, it sucked me in right there. But anyway.
So yeah, it's Halloween night, 1963. Michael Myers kills his sister Judith, and this is all said,
which is kind of like just before the Kennedy assassination. When you think about it, weird. Just wanted to point that out.
Coincidence, yeah.
Go ahead.
Haddonfield, Illinois, is the location that this is set in. And Michael Myers is 6 years old at the time when he kills his sister. It then fast forwards to about 15 years later, and on this, is it like 2 nights before Halloween, like the 30th, the night before Halloween?
Yeah, I would say that. Yeah.
Yeah, he escapes from the Smith Grove Sanitarium, and it was supposed to be the night that I guess Loomis and, I forget, whatever her name was.
Yeah.
But anyways, they're on their way to go, and Nurse Karen, I think, they were on their way to transport him for his, I guess he was finally going to court 15 years later. So that would have put him at what, 20?
I think it was 21? If I remember right, and I can't believe I'm even, because I think it's to put him locked up forever. Like, I think that's what Loomis is trying to do, if I remember right. And I don't know why I just watched the movie like 3 days ago. You'd think I would remember it. And I've seen it 700 times, but I don't, whatever.
Yeah. So it
wasn't relevant.
He gets
Michael's
away.
Escaping. That's what really matters.
Right. It's every movie. He's escaped the sanitarium. He gets into a vehicle, which is amazing because I don't understand how he was able to learn to drive.
Well, Loomis does say that. He says, "Who taught him how to drive?" And he suddenly learned how to drive. And hey, maybe he was quiet for all those years. Maybe he was thinking, "How do you drive?" Let's see. You put your foot there. Maybe remembering how mom and dad drove. I don't know, but anyway, it can't be. It's not really hard.
Okay, I just can't believe. Well, yeah, suspension of disbelief. So he leaves. Drives the vehicle out back to his hometown of Haddonfield, Illinois. On the way there, he kills a mechanic. He takes the jumpsuit from him. And then kind of through we had a break-in at a local hardware store. We find out that he found a mask and took some rope.
Yeah, which I don't recall him ever using.
So the only thing I can think of is at the very end of the movie when Lori walks in and she sees all her dead friends there, and I think it's
they used it for that.
I think it's Bob.
Yeah, Bob. He swings out.
Bob just kind of hanging there, swinging.
Yeah,
I don't know. That's what
me
he's like.
Yeah, but we're retconning that. That's what he used the rope for. Because I don't remember seeing him using rope in anything other than nothing. But go ahead.
Right. And I should mention at the 55-minute mark of the movie, we get a Howard the Duck sighting. Did you catch that?
No, I never.
So Tommy is sitting there on the couch, and so again, if you listen to the show, Howard the Duck is a kind of really.
It's not the magazine because it's Tarantula Man, there's Laser Man, and whatever else.
It's a comic. Yeah, he's reading he's just sitting there. It's a Howard the Duck comic. So
I'll have to look at that.
Anyways, so 55-minute mark, go check it. And then it's around this time that we also, I'm kind of jumping ahead, but so Michael Myers comes back. Lori's babysitting these 2 kids, Tommy and forget her name now. Anyways, she's babysitting these 2 kids. They're watching TV, which one of the shows they're watching is The Thing, which I always thought was funny because 4 years later, John Carpenter would go on to do a remake of The Thing.
Well, I think he was
with Kurt Russell.
putting a play for it because it's like a 15-second shot of the opening of the thing.
Right, yeah.
It's like, this is like dead air here. What are we doing?
Blatantly obvious that I want to do this movie.
Yeah, this is like, there's some copyright infringement going on here. Because it wasn't like a 2-second thing. It was like the whole beginning there. But anyway.
Yeah, they show the intro.
Yeah.
And then I think later on they also show The Forbidden Planet, which is a terrible movie if you've never seen it. But I know it's one of Carpenter's favorite movies, so he was kind of throwing a shout out to both of those there. So eventually, Michael Myers kills all of her friends. We got one scene in there where with Annie, and it's not Annie, it's is it Annie? Yeah, I think it's Annie. Annie, where he's got the sheet over his head.
Oh, that's the other one. That's the blonde headed girl. Annie's the one with in the laundry room there with she spills something on her, a butter, she says, and she takes off basically all her clothes and goes to the.
Why not? Yeah, I mean, there's nothing else you can do in that.
No, right? I mean, your whole pants and just in your shirt, and then you put I don't know. It was rather. That's
usually what happens to me when I spill butter on myself. I just get completely naked.
I felt like at that point John had watched like a porno before he made that scene and said, "Oh yeah, just take your pants off and just go out to the laundry thing and the thing." That was Annie with Lindsay watching the movie there and ignoring just about everything under the sun. And now I can't remember the lady's name off the top of my head.
Was it Linda?
Linda, I think it was Linda.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Linda, she's the one that gets strangled by the phone cord.
Yes, which is. I don't know if that's really possible, to be honest. That's one scene I always said, I don't know. Is that really possible? I mean,
sure it is.
I guess it's Michael Myers. He's got superhuman strength, right?
Right. And cords back then were pretty strong, right?
Well, yeah, they're not like
tensile strength.
Yeah, they're not like they are now.
Yeah, we don't have cords. But that was another creepy moment for me growing up and seeing Michael Myers sitting there with that sheet on and then the glasses, which I thought was a funny touch. Why he would do that? Any thoughts?
Well, he's got a sense of humor, Michael.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. He's really into this Halloween thing. Like he puts the sheet, and you'll see that in the new one that you see, which is like a direct sequel now, and all the Easter eggs in it. You'll be smiling with everything you see, except for one scene that happens. But we'll talk about that later when we get down to wherever. Final thoughts. But Michael's got a sense of humor when he hacks Bob and puts him up against the wall, and he kind of does his head tilt like a dog or a cat, and kind of just sees it and admires his work.
Yeah.
I think he was like feeling very creative then, and he's like, well, I got to put a sheet on and put the glasses on, and go with it. I'm just going with it here. I'm being an avant-garde kind of artiste here. Let me do my thing, and that's kind of what was going on there. But he's, he is. That's what it goes, he just goes with it.
The funny side of Michael Myers.
Exactly. Well, in dark times, you need to have a sense of humor, and I think he was finding it.
Oh, okay. You would know better than anyone else.
Well, that is true.
So eventually we get to the very end of the movie. Laurie, all her friends are killed now. Her boyfriend and Laurie's friends and their boyfriends are dead, I should say. And then we get the final showdown between Laurie. So Laurie and Michael Myers before Loomis finally shows up. He fires 6 shots into Michael Myers, sending him over the balcony of a 2-story home down into the ground.
7 in part 2, but that's a whole controversy there.
Yeah, because he went out the front door, I think. Was it the front door in the first one and the back door in the second one? But they flipped it, I think.
I know that, but they also screwed up the count of shots. Like Loomis says in part 2, he says, I shot him 7 times.
6 times.
But he did it 6 times if you watch the movie. But, hey, it's Hollywood. These things happen. Don't be so serious about it.
But that's kind of the rundown of the movie. We'll come back to the kill count because I do want to talk about the deaths themselves. But I had this thing in here that I said who the Halloween is Moustapha Akkad. So for those of you that don't know, when the movie starts up, and this is kind of reminiscent of the movies in the 70s, they always paid a lot of credit to the people that were financing the movies, more so than we do today. We don't really see a lot of that in today's movies. But if you think back, like on particularly this one, the Godfather series. The Superman series, they would throw these names up of these investors before the movie credits really rolled. And Moustapha Akkad is one of the people that it mentions very beginning before they say
John Carpenter,
show the title screen, or Halloween or John Carpenter.
Yeah, it says
Moustapha Akkad
presented
presents.
by, I think it says, or something like that. And indirectly, technically, Gaddafi kind of funded this guy, which technically funded Halloween in a roundabout way. So. At least that's what they say. I don't know.
No.
But
very few people know who Gaddafi is.
Well, that is true.
At this point.
Yeah, he's a dead warlord, I guess you could say now. But That's about it. That's all you need to know about him. But yeah.
Moustapha Akkad. So he was a Syrian American who left the U.S. right after high school. He had $200, a copy of the Quran, and he came over to be a film director. He eventually found his way over to be a producer at CBS around about 1976 or so. He saw John Carpenter's work on Assault on Precinct 13 from 1976. And then he, along with Irwin Yablans, who's the other gentleman that's mentioned in the opening credits, they approached John Carpenter and they asked him to direct a film. And they wanted this film to be as impactful as The Exorcist. And really, they kind of just had a very loose idea about a serial killer that was going around killing babysitters.
Yeah, the babysitter.
That was really all they.
Yeah, that was the original.
Babysitter.
Yeah, that was the original title.
Yep. This guy was so into the movies, though. I mean, he went on to produce 8 of the Halloween films until finally he died in 2005. And sadly, he passed away along with his 25-year-old daughter at the time. They were victims of an Al-Qaeda terrorist attack on November 9th in 2005, the Amman bombings in Amman, Jordan. So the really cool thing, as much as we'll probably not, as much as we may dog the Rob Zombie films, in the 2007 version of Halloween, the very first one, there is at the very end, right when the credits roll, there is a dedication to him that Zombie and the cast and crew threw in there after he had died. So that was kind of neat that they did that. So. But interesting enough, that's the gentleman, and his sons and most of his family they're still producing. In fact, I think I've not had a chance to look at the credits, but I want to say they are involved in the new remake as well, the 2018 version as well.
I want to say yes, because if I remember, I was looking at the other day on Google or whatever. I think their name is credited as a producer or an executive producer. I'm not sure off the top of my head. I just know Bloom and John Carpenter, Jamie Lee Curtis is our next. There's several hundred names there, and stuff like that. So I wouldn't be surprised. I'll have to look at it after we get off air just to check it out and see if that's true. But I want to say yes, and if I remember right from the title thing, the credits rolling the other night, I would say yes.
It's cool though because it's again it speaks to Donald Pleasance and Jamie Lee Curtis and John Carpenter and now this family. They all seem very dedicated to this series, which I think is really neat. It's very novel compared to what we maybe have today, where people are, one and done kind of thing.
Yeah.
Or they don't want to sign on to do sequels or.
Well, John was kind of that way. John didn't really want to do part 2, but he did it. And then he was like, I don't want to do anything. John's kind of grumpy like me. So I'm like the John Carpenter version of podcasters. Except I'm not as successful as him. So
yet.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I like your optimism, boy.
Yet. All right. So let's talk about the kill count. So in Halloween 1, first person that dies obviously is Judith Myers, stabbed 9 times.
My question to you, though, before we go any further, is why didn't he kill her boyfriend?
I don't know.
He comes down the stairs. He's looking right at, and how does the boyfriend not see him?
Right.
I don't understand that. And then he just walks out the door, and that's it. And, Michael could have got away with it. Just killed her and walked away. The boyfriend could have gotten in trouble for it. Michael, you got to think these things all the way through. Granted, you were 6 at the time. I get it. But, in any case, continue, sir.
No, and the cool thing about that, and as cool as murder can be,
it's really
the cool
not,
thing is that it's not. But I do like the way it was shot. And it's kind of, you had a good point earlier on where it's kind of less is more with this film. There really is not a lot of violence or blood in it, believe it or not. I mean, we know things happen. It's implied that things happen. And it wasn't really in the second movie, they loosen up a little bit more. There's a little bit more blood and gore. And then,
then they go into the Jason territory after that.
Right.
Like everybody did in the 80s. So, and even
the way
90s,
this one's shot.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, in the 90s, yeah, trust me, it gets out of hand.
Oh, big time.
Because they're just kind of keeping up with the Joneses.
See, and the funny thing, I'll compare it to even the new one. I think the new one does a good balance. Now, I know some people have said there are some scenes that, okay, it's like Friday the 13th there. I get that. And you got to have a little bit of that for the audience, today's audience. You got to kind of oversell it, so to speak. But for the most part, it's left the way it was in 78 in a way. And I like that. Personally, I like the whole, you don't really see it, but you hear it and you kind of imagine it. And then it freaks you out even more, which is what sold in 1978. And even in the 80s, the early 80s with these types of movies is not even seeing it. It's like Alfred Hitchcock in a way. Right. It's very much like that, where that means more in a sense, because you start living in your head and start imagining things, which is far worse than anything the director can come up with. But go ahead.
Yeah, no, and I 100% agree. And that's why I think this one made that first scene is kind of gruesome because you can hear it, you can kind of see it, but you're not really seeing a lot of the violence.
But it's interesting that it's his point of view. Like Michael, you could have just followed Michael up to the house and stuff. Maybe he was mad because they placed the pumpkin not on the stairs; it's up on the railing, which is a horrible place to put the pumpkin. But
that's not even as egregious as later on, where there's a pumpkin right next to the bed on the what is it, the nightstand?
Yeah, well, you're gonna enjoy the new one. I'll just leave it at that. But actually, interestingly enough, that's Deborah Hill's arms that are doing the knife and the hands grabbing there because her arms were small enough at the time to do that. Which is odd because you think you got the little actor there. Why not just use him? But in any case,
here, hold this knife and pretend you're killing this lady.
Yeah,
small child.
Yeah, don't worry about it. She's naked too, so it's a bonus for you.
We'll cover the psychiatrist bills from here on out.
Yeah.
Company's got it.
Yeah, don't worry about it. You'll be fine.
So then we get the Phelps garage guy, which we talked about. I don't know how we don't get an explanation how he died. We just find him laying dead in the grass, and he's obviously missing his jumpsuit.
Yeah, and Loomis doesn't even bother to look any further. Like, I don't understand. Like, he knows something happened. It's Michael. Michael killed someone, and Loomis just kind of just goes away. Like, he's like, oh my God, I got to get to town, all this stuff. And he just kind of like, what are the coincidences though, of him finding the truck that Michael, did that? And how did the guy get out of that truck? I'm just curious how that all went down. I guess it's better we don't know. Poor guy though, man. He's just trying to make a living and runs into that.
Yep. Sucks to be you, dude. The Annie cuts her throat in the car. So
which I've seen that scene 1,000 times, and I've watched it recently, and I'm like, this really isn't like. Speaking of the gore thing, it's not that gory, but I'm like, I don't even get the hint that she got her neck cut. Like, it just doesn't.
Oh, really?
Yeah, when you look at it, it looks funny to me. I know her neck is being cut, but when you're looking at it, it just doesn't. I don't know why. It just seems weird to me. Maybe I'm just looking at it all wrong, I guess. I don't know.
You mean it doesn't look realistic, or you can't tell what he's doing?
I think it's more like you can't tell what he's doing. Like, you don't see any blood spurting or and not that I want to see the blood. Like, I don't want to see a lot, but you don't see like a knife going across the neck and then some blood coming out, and then you see her face do the contorted thing and then just die. We don't get any of that. I mean, I know the windows were fogged and everything else, but it just seemed odd. That was the one death that seemed, I mean, other than Bob getting filleted there, but I mean, it just seemed pretty odd. I don't know. Look at it next time you see it. Just take a look at it.
Okay. The and Bob is the next one up. He has the best death, and arguably one of the best deaths, I think, just because of the way it's filmed, the way it's shot, the camera, the way it cuts back and forth, and then we get what you mentioned earlier, where Michael Myers is kind of just admiring his work. So he unfortunately gets impaled and then just pinned up right on the wall there, which I think is crazy gruesome.
Which is, to be honest, not logical or possible with that kind of knife, because it just wouldn't work. But it is Hollywood.
How would you know this, sir?
I just know these things, sir.
Okay.
But I do think it was cool, that whole scene. He's in the kitchen. It's kind of, he's going through and he thinks someone's scaring him. He opens the closet and he thinks it's there. Then he closes it. Then, of course, Michael's in the next one, and then he gets filleted and pinned to the wall like that. It was a very, and then you get that window between the two of them, like the door.
Yep.
And you can see the outside. And then Michael's doing, like I said before, the cat tilt with the head and or the dog look or whatever you wanted. And he's admiring what he just did. And meanwhile, Bob's just dead. It's just an interesting shot, to say the least.
Yeah. No, I love it. I think it's a great, and again, sorry, I'm not crazy, but I do just like that shot. It is creepy. It's gruesome, scary. Definitely had the best one there. And then finally, his only other victim, well, we have technically two more, but beyond this, the only human that dies is Linda, and we talked about her getting strangled by the phone cord there at the end. The other two victims
Lester,
of Michael Myers,
Lester the dog.
The two dogs.
Yeah, Lester the dog.
So there's Annie's dog, and then there's also the dog that they find inside his house.
Yes,
which I assume he ate or did something with.
I think he ate the dog.
Yeah.
I think when I was younger, I thought, oh, he just killed the dog because the dog was in the house and didn't want him barking.
Right.
But then when you look at it, you hear it earlier and Loomis is talking and it's like, oh, okay. He killed it and he ate it.
He killed it and ate it. Yeah.
Which, it's funny because now you think about it, especially you just think about it. Like if he's out in the wild, he'll eat anything. just to survive. He doesn't even care. Like that's crazy. Like when you think about it, like he'll find a way to survive, and that's even more frightening when you think about it. So I guess Laurie had a good reason to be insane in the new one and prep and have all these guns and everything. So
yeah,
but yeah,
this guy's nuts.
Yeah, he is.
So let's transition to The Shape. So for those of you that don't know, if you look at the end credits, I think both in part 1 and part 2, and to be honest, I don't know if they refer to him as this in the sequels. But in the script and certainly in the credits, he's referred to as The Shape. In fact, they don't actually mention him as Michael Myers.
No. Only in the movie. That's
right.
Yeah,
that he's actually said that. And it's interesting because the reason why is because in the original script, and I'll just quickly read a passage. It mentions darkness with a small shape in the center of the screen. As the main title continues over, camera slowly moves in on the shape. We get closer and closer until we see that the shape is a Halloween mask. It is a large, full-head, Playtex rubber mask, not a monster or a ghoul, but the pale, neutral face of a man weirdly distorted by the rubber. So that was from the screenplay, the script itself, and that became the name of it. And so when you look at things like the credits and then the soundtracks, they don't refer to Michael Myers. It's always The Shape, which I always thought was interesting. That they never actually mentioned him by name in those two things.
Well, but
let's talk.
In one way, I interpret it as The Shape because as we were talking about with Nick doing his portrayal of him, he's just an average guy. He's like a shape of what a man should be, but there's nothing there. Like it's just nothing. It's just evil or whatever you want to go with. So The Shape kind of fits with that. Of course, he's always sneaking in the shadows and you're wondering, is he there? Is he not there? Although I don't know how Laurie doesn't see him in the, like she sees him and then he's gone in 1 second. You're like, all right, there's something going on here. Who's in my laundry there? But although I love that shot though, I do love that. It's one of my favorite shots in the whole thing is him.
Because it's creepy.
Yeah, it is
just
creepy.
Standing there looking at
and it's in broad daylight on top of that, which is even more creepy because the guy's got that much gall to be wearing the William Shatner mask on and doing that in the laundry and then just like, hey, I'm here and then not there. And then, I like that shot. But anyway.
And we should mention, so again, Michael Myers is in all of these movies with the exception of part 3, which has really nothing to do with any of the other ones. But let's talk about the mask because you mentioned it. This was originally just a Captain James T. Kirk Star Trek mask that they purchased for about $1.
I thought it was his death mask, if I'm correct. Like it was for some prop and they took it and then they just painted over it. It was originally, light skin or whatever, and then they just painted over. I could be wrong on this. I don't know.
Yeah, I think
because there's like 7 different.
This one.
Yeah, maybe they did. I don't know. It seems like I want to say because they were filming something with Star Trek or something. There was a death mask of Kirk or whatever, and they kind of just took it and then did their own thing with it. I could be wrong. Yeah. I'll have to look at this.
But
again.
Nonetheless, they took this mask.
Yes, exactly.
Painted it white, put brown hair on it. They added, they cut off the eyebrows. They removed the eyebrows from it, pulled the sideburns off of it, and then they ended up cutting the eyes out a little bit more. So they kind of reshaped the eyes. But I mean, kudos to them because this is, and I don't know if it's so much, what came first, did the mask or the movie? Did the movie make the mask? Did the mask make the movie? That kind of thing. But definitely is super creepy. And this mask, every Halloween, there's always somebody that is running around with it. You. Because your Facebook, that profile pic, I mean, you're a pretty scary looking person as it is, but the fact that you're behind that mask
makes it even worse.
It is pretty creepy. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
So, I mean, kudos to them for coming up with this and not really spending a whole lot of money or time or thought around what it should look like. But I think they kind of hit it out of the park.
Well, I think because the eyes are bigger and they're darker because it doesn't sit right on his eyes. If I in the original, like you don't see his eyes at all. In the sequels, you kind of do, but in this one, you don't. You just see black, right. Which makes it creepy. I think that's it's all about the eyes that makes it creepy. Like even when you watch the new one, you're like, that's definitely Michael. So yeah, I definitely think this was a perfect mask for a killer. And the funny thing is, I didn't know it was this until I got older. Like I said, in '95, when I was doing my little, I'd watch the movie, I'd get into it, and then I'd do a little research, and I found out about it, and I'm like, oh, I didn't know that, which is cool. So I hate Star Trek. Well, I don't hate it. I don't like it that much, but I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I think there's Shatner's on record as saying he was flattered when he found out that they had used a mask of him as Captain Kirk.
Because technically he's got two iconic roles now, when you think about it. So he lives on for quite a while. But
three if you count T.J. Hooker. So let's that's a series that I could talk for hours about. That series is amazing.
Oh, it was great. All right, stay focused.
We
don't want to be 10 hours here. Let's.
Yeah, right. All right. Well, let's get back to this. So I got a question for you. Do they? I've noticed and we keep coming back to the 2018 version. We'll get there eventually. We say that, but we keep coming back to it. The 2018 version, the mask looks like it's aged.
They did that. They specifically copied what they had originally, and then they just aged it up. And the guy went so far as to figure out how latex would age. Like it's been in the locker room for 40 years in the DA's office, and they aged it well, and that's how they did it. So it's kind of falling apart in a way. Yeah. But yeah, they did a very good job on the mask. And it's funny because that mask, depending on the lighting, and I noticed this today, when you see him, there's a shot of him putting it, he just put it on and the trunk closes or wherever. He's behind the car where the mask was, where he got it. And he puts it on. It's almost like like the mask is smiling. If you look at it, maybe it's just me because I'm crazy in the head and I'm thinking these things, but it looks like he's smiling. And then other shots, he's got that look of like, I'm going to just F you up, so to speak. So it seems like the way the lighting is done and of course that's how they film things these days with the lighting and, they've always done that, but the way they do it now, it worked well. I don't know. I like that shot too of him putting, anyway, we'll just leave it at that. I don't want to spoil anything for you.
Yeah, we already spoiled enough.
No, not at all. You are going to be tickled pink. And I was surprised because I'm like a fan of Halloween. I wouldn't say I'm hardcore, but I picked up on all the Easter eggs and all the nods and everything, and you're gonna love this. This is something maybe Kathleen Kennedy and see, I got it in there, could pick up on. But go ahead.
I can't wait. We're actually going to go see it on Saturday.
Well, watch Halloween and then go watch that. Not that you need the refresher with Halloween.
Oh, I've seen Halloween 3 times in the last 7 days.
Oh, all right, good.
The first movie.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so I'm good.
Oh, yeah, you'll be fine.
All right, well, let's move on from Halloween 1. We'll talk about Halloween 2. So Halloween 2 came out in 1981, again written by John Carpenter and Deborah Hill. Let's jump right into kind of where it starts off because it picks up right after part 1. I mean, there really is no kind of, we mentioned the inconsistency there with the number of shots being fired. We get a couple, it's really neat because we actually, the way it opens, we get the same things happen, right? Loomis shooting Michael Myers, but we get some different camera angles, which is neat. So we get a kind of a different perspective there. And it starts off with, Loomis looking over the edge and realizing that Michael Myers is suddenly gone again. And it cuts to Michael Myers. We get to see his perspective. He's walking through the streets trying to avoid the cops. And that's when we get the...
shot him 7 times,
Shot him 7 times. Oh, we skipped over the... you don't know what death is.
Oh, yeah.
That's the part where I'm like, all right, Loomis is
the guy on the
nuts.
lawn there. You don't know. Yeah.
He's like, I've been trick-or-treating to death tonight.
Yeah.
You don't know what death is. Yeah. And then he runs off, and then we get the music. So kind of sets the tone for that character going forward. But Laurie is then taken to the hospital. Ben Tramer is the kid that they mentioned in the first movie that I think it was Annie or somebody was trying to set up Laurie with, right? Yeah. There's a scene in there where they're kind of talking about, oh, you need to talk to Ben Tramer and, I'll set you should go on a date, that kind of thing. Well, it's right after that we find poor Ben Tramer. He's wearing the exact same kind of mask and Loomis sees him, pulls out a gun, almost opens fire on this kid, this poor person. And that's when he gets hit by the police car, pinned up against a van. There's a big explosion, and then he just sits there and burns a horrible death. So this is where Loomis, again, and even the cops are at fault here. This is total negligence, but they just get in the vehicle and drive off and let that poor guy just sit there and burn to death, which I thought was
And not only that, funny. The manufacturer of that van that blew up, or whatever it was, whatever vehicle blew up and caused that fire, because that shouldn't happen like that. Is this a Pinto going on here? What is going on?
I don't know.
So there was a lot of negligence. That family should be loaded by now with all the lawsuits that they just should have filed after that. But that poor Ben.
So then it cuts over to the Michael Myers home. So now there's a small they've got pitchforks and torches and they're rallying, the neighborhood's rallying at Michael Myers' home. And we get a shot of Dana Carvey. He's sitting there. This is an early role. I don't even know if he's actually credited, but he's sitting there. If you watch the movie again, he's talking to like the main female reporter, or she's giving him advice about, hey, you need to get the scoop, and if you can't, make it up, kind of thing. He's wearing a vest and a baseball cap. He comes back a little bit later too in the movie, but Dana Carvey is in this one. So Laurie's taken to the hospital. Michael Myers ends up following her out to the hospital. He eventually just kills all of the staff for the most part. All of the main characters that we were introduced there, or for the most part, are dead. We get there's a dream sequence, and this is where things are going to start really. They're trying to put a storyline behind Michael Myers and why he does the things he does, other than just being a psychopath. And we get a dream sequence here where Laurie is, we get the word that they're maybe related.
Oh yeah,
brother or sister.
That girl.
Yeah,
that's Michael Myers' sister.
Yeah,
it's like, whoa, John. I know you're friends with George, but really,
right,
really, you had to go there. George must have been I suggested it to him, so he went with it.
It is a Lucas. Yeah, it is a. Maybe they were riding the high of Empire Strikes Back. This is only a year later.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They've mentioned, people have mentioned it before, and I know John hates it. I think he hates it after because he didn't want to do this. Nobody wanted to do this film, but they were going to ride off the success for it, so they did it. So they did it, and Jamie Lee felt like she owed Deborah and John, and John felt like he had to do it, and that whole thing. So it was like a chore to get it done. I think the only one that liked doing it was Donald Pleasance. I think he was the only one that was like, yeah, this will set me for life. This whole role here. Right. I'm a horrible doctor, but that's okay.
Yeah. So go back to the movie. He's killed everybody in the hospital. Eventually, Loomis shows up, and Loomis is with a marshal who also ends up dying. Loomis is stabbed by Michael Myers, but he doesn't die. And then Laurie is using a weapon. So at this point, she's got a pistol that Loomis had given her. She fires 2 shots. Man, she's a dead eye. 2 bullets right in both eyes.
Well, she is she's in the new one too. She's a pretty good shot too. Just leave it at that.
Well, they probably played that up. That's where they got it from. But so she takes his eyesight out, so he can't see anything. So Michael Myers starts swinging around a scalpel or something he's got in his hand. While this is going on, Loomis decides that he's going to start opening up the gas tanks. Laurie figures out what his plan is. She opens up the gas tanks. Laurie gets out, and then we get the Loomis saying goodbye to Michael Myers. Pulls out a lighter, lights it, ignites it, blows up himself and Michael Myers, and we get that really cool shot that this is the first movie I'd ever seen, but I used to love this shot where everything's just in flames, and you see Michael Myers kind of strolling out
in flames.
And you think surely, in flames, thinking he cannot survive this, and then he just kind of falls and crumples onto the ground. So
yes. But he comes back. I mean, he comes back years later. No. I'm kidding.
No. So let's jump to the kill count on this one. So we had Alice, who was stabbed in the chest with the old lady's knife. So this is the at the very beginning of the movie, Michael Myers steals a knife from this poor old couple. But she's the first to go. We got the bumbling idiot security guard Garrett or whatever his name is.
Mm-hmm.
He gets the hammer claw to the head. And they were like trying to, I don't know, this was like the only time in the movie where they were trying to be funny. There was no music going on in the background that made you think they were trying to be funny, but he had that one scene where he opens up the closet and everything falls on him. And then later on he goes and tries to open up the next closet. And that's when Michael Myers pops out and drops the hammer, so to speak. We had Bud and Nurse Karen, who were being really, they were getting it on there in the hot tub. So Bud strangled in the room next to the hot tub. And then Nurse Karen, she gets drowned and scalded to death, which I thought was probably the best kill in this movie.
In the hot tub.
Yeah, in the hot tub. Yeah. Too hot in the hot tub.
I don't think that's possible either.
Is that not possible? Why does it even have that setting to go that high?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Where was Mythbusters when we needed this tested? Where were they? They didn't do this. I want the knife thing tested, and I want this tested because I don't think it's possible. But yeah, it's still cool.
But it is a cool death.
It was cool.
It's cool the way it looks, the way it was shot, and you get to see her skin coming off.
Yeah, it wasn't the hot tub time machine, that's for sure.
Nope. Dr. Mixture. He's the one that gets the. We just find him. I think he gets turned around. He's got the syringe in his temple. So we don't get to see that on screen, but we know that he killed her. He killed him that way. Nurse Janet, she dies with the empty syringe to the head. So it's just a bunch of air that he fires into her head and kills her that way.
Again,
Nurse Alv.
These are things that need to be tested. I'm just saying.
You don't need to test that.
Not on a live real person. I don't know. But anyway, we got to find out.
I think that's real, isn't it? If you pump air into like your bloodstream, you can die.
Well, yeah, but I mean into your head like that? I don't know. Maybe you get an aneurysm or something. I don't know.
We'll have you come back with your results later.
Yeah. Well, if I don't show up, I'm dead. So
or arrested.
That too.
All right, Nurse Alves. There's more people here that are killed.
Well, of course, you got to double the kill count here. Which I think is what I liked about part 1. Yeah, there were murders, but it wasn't over the top. It was more realistic in someone could do that in a night. You know what I mean? Like it just seemed, and obviously part 2, it was just, we got to ramp it up more and make it more gory and all this other stuff. But I think the charm of, not that it's real charm, is that you had less of a body count. I just thought it's just the simplicity of 1 is why it holds up 40 years later. And now, granted, the other ones are pretty darn good as well for what they are, but I don't know. The first one's the best.
Nurse Alves is the Hispanic-looking lady. She's the one that gets all her blood drained. And we skipped over Jimmy. Lance Guest. Again, the last Starfighter, Lance Guest.
Really? You just found a way to just get that in here. That's all you were doing. I know. It's just like me picking on
I didn't cast him, man.
Yeah, I know. It's okay.
I didn't cast him. He plays Alex Rogan in The Last Starfighter. So
okay,
which is a great movie if you want to talk about that.
It's really not, but that's fine.
But so poor Lance Guest, Jimmy, walks in on Nurse Alves and she's been completely drained of blood. Doesn't see it, I guess. I don't know how. Slips, bumps his head. He actually ends up living in this movie, and I don't think we ever see him again. But he's got a hot thing for Lori throughout. So, anyways. Nurse Jill, she's I guess very similar to Bob, gets a scalpel on her body and then he lifts her up. And it's shot very similar to the way Bob died in the first movie. So, again, pretty gruesome in terms of the way that looks and the way, she dies. And then I'm trying to think who else is. Oh, it's the Marshal is the last one. So he gets too close, right? Michael Myers is laying there on the ground. The Marshal walks up. Oh, I think he's dead, and everybody knows he's not dead. Everybody knows you're going to die. And sure enough, he gets the throat scalpel. So what is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 people dead in this movie?
Well, do you count 4, Michael too?
5, 6, 7, 8, 9 people dead.
You count Michael?
No, because he's not dead. No,
he's sure he is.
But that was it. Which one was your favorite?
Oh, well, for death?
Yeah, for part 2.
I would go with the hot tub one. You can't beat the hot tub death. So,
yeah,
I'll go with that one. Although the syringe thing is cool too, but the hot tub.
Okay, well, let us know which one is more accurate.
Well,
at some point down the road.
We got to test these things. Halloween Mythbusters. That's what I want to do. But anyway.
All right. Well, before we get into the legacy and talk about some of the sequels, I just want to touch quickly on the soundtrack because we mentioned the main theme is iconic.
It's right up there with
knows it.
The Star Wars theme. It's like right up there when you think about it.
Jaws.
Yeah, Jaws. This one.
Exorcist.
Oh yeah, it's there. You're like, oh yeah, you know what it is. Even Blue Thunder. You could kind of throw that one in there for an honorable mention, if you will.
No.
But yeah, this is definitely. It's just so. Simple. Again, simple is what works best. I don't know why people don't do these things. Where you just do it simple and clean, and it works very well. I don't know.
Yeah,
it's just intriguing. Like as soon as you hear that, things are going to go down, and it's not good.
Yeah. If you're a fan of that main theme, I highly recommend. And you guys know if you listen to the show, I listen to a lot of synth music. But John Carpenter did all the music for this soundtrack, and he's done music for a number of other films. Most of his films, he actually is the one doing a lot of the soundtrack for. But there are 3 albums that he did. There's the anthology movie themes from 1975 to 1998. So that's a collection of some of the main themes from like Escape from New York and Halloween, all those. You can listen to those. Again, it's a lot of synth type stuff. There is a Lost Themes 1 that came out in 2015, and there's a Lost Themes 2 that came out in 2016. But I really have to say that I enjoy all of that stuff that he does. I think he's very underrated in terms of what he's able to do or what he's done. His dad, I think, was a composer, so he's got that musical background, which is where a lot of this comes from. But if you really like that music, you're into the 80s vibe, into that sound, and you like the music from this movie or any of the other John movies, know that there are a number of soundtracks out there that have his works collected, and they're definitely worth checking out.
Well, him and his son did a newer version of the theme for the new version.
It's great.
Yeah, so they did it together, which was pretty cool. But even the times you don't hear the main theme, there are times where music's played. It's just like the piano, like when Laurie's walking or whatever, and or when Michael's doing not even whatever's going on. There's other music going on, and it's a good thread throughout the movie. Like, it just fits perfectly. And I remember recently, and there was an interview he was doing. He was talking about how he showed it to, I guess, a bunch of producers and says, well, we can't do anything with this. This is garbage. And then he did the music, and then it was good. So music is, as we know with John Williams, is the key to just about everything. So,
and there's in the 2018, the soundtrack itself, there is the Halloween theme, which is it's got some more oomph to it, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
They've got there's one called The Shape Returns, which I think is really good. They have the original one in there as well, but the one that stood out for me is the very last track called Halloween Triumphant. It's kind of like the main title, but it's much more modern sounding. It's just a great soundtrack. So, but yeah, it was Cody Carpenter, John Carpenter, and Daniel Davis that kind of all contributed to the new soundtrack. So take a look at it, listen to it when you can. All right, let's jump into Legacy because we're getting short on here on time. But I just want to talk about, we've got a number of sequels. There was Halloween 3, came out in 1982. That was Season of the Witch.
Which is where everyone gets confused. And there's a lot of people that actually like it for what it is. And I don't mind it. I haven't seen it in 100 years. It was okay. I like the premise, and I like that it was cheesy.
Yep. And it's not bad.
No,
I've grown to like it as I've gotten older, and for not because, like you said, not because it's a good movie, but for what it is. It's an interesting story, and it's kind of cheesy, and it's hokey because they're talking about chips, and one of the microchips has a laser that shoots you if you try to take it off and all that stuff. But not part of the main series. But if you want to, and it's all focused around Samhain, which is the festival at this time. So then we get to 1988. So this is now, what is that? Almost 17 years later? Is that right?
Yeah.
No, 7 years later. Sorry.
Yeah.
That he comes back. And so this is Return of Michael Myers. And that's part 4. Part 5 is The Revenge of Michael Myers. 1995, we get The Curse of Michael Myers. And then we get 1988's version of Halloween, which is H20, 20 years later. That one's got Joseph Gordon-Levitt, LL Cool J, Josh Hartnett are all in that one.
Yeah.
2002, 2002 Halloween Resurrection. And then we've got the 2018 Halloween movie that we've already completely spoiled for you. But,
we did not.
Which of those?
I mean, what is the odds of Michael's on a kill crazy rampage, and he, you know that the story's going to be? Come on. But anyway.
Yeah. What, any of those stand out for you as favorites, or which ones are commendable?
I want to say, well, obviously the Season of Witch wasn't bad, but I want to say Halloween 4, 5, and 6. I like them together and watching them together. Yeah, the Samhain thing and the whole this, that, and that it goes off track, and it's charming for what it is. It's not. I don't consider it like canon, if you will, if we want to go down that kind of a path. Like, it's just like Halloween happened, and then all this other stuff was a bunch of stuff they wanted to do just to do it. Yeah. You know what I mean? But I like them. I like the actress that was in there. It was a good story overall, and it still kind of kept the beat of it. When we get to Rob Zombie, not so much. Now, I'll say this about Rob Zombie's. I like that his portrayal of Michael early on and being abused and all this other stuff, and because there was trauma. There had to be trauma for this kid to kind of snap in 1970, in the 1978 version. And Rob Zombie kind of went and kind of explored that a little bit, which wasn't bad. I just thought it was just over the top and a little bit too gross for my Michael Myers or Halloween type of movie, where I like the mystery of it more than like the just blood and guts and everything. And that's what Rob Zombie kind of does anyway. But It wasn't bad for what it tried to do, I guess. It just doesn't do anything for me. What about you?
Yeah. So same. I mean, again, part 3, Season of the Witch is fine. 4, 5, and 6 were all fine. I actually enjoyed that whole take on, the niece suddenly becoming obsessed or becoming the new Michael Myers kind of thing. Part 5, by the way, does have Ant-Man, Paul Rudd in it.
Yes, it does.
Is playing Tommy Doyle. So he's actually playing the kid from the first movie who's now come back and he becomes one of the protagonists in the movie, which was kind of cool, I guess, at the time. Wasn't a big fan of the H20 because the payoff, right? In H20, she pins him up against the fence in a van at the very end. Remember this? And then she takes the axe out and cuts his head off. And you think, oh, okay, surely he can't survive that. And then we get to the Resurrection movie, and it turns out, oh, wait a minute, that actually wasn't Michael Myers. Michael Myers actually went out and choked a guy, broke his larynx, put him in this costume, and this poor sap was trying to tell Jamie Lee Curtis's character, Laurie, that, hey, I'm not, I'm not Michael Myers, and she went ahead and beheaded him. So I just thought that was just, I don't know. At this point, again, we've kind of talked about it. They were kind of just,
milking it,
riding along the wave and milking it for all it's worth and going over the top.
They were driving it into the ground at that point. And that's why Jamie Lee and even John Carpenter were very hesitant to come back to it to do this. You know what I mean? They're like, all right, what can we possibly do? And stuff. So, but I'm glad they did come back and kind of set things right. I'm glad they decided, all right, we're going to wipe out everything that came before. It didn't happen. I mean, if you like it, that's fine. It's cool. It's just a different take, but this is going to be a direct sequel. And I think they did it right. I still am conflicted about how Laurie is portrayed in a sense, and not that Jamie Lee doesn't do a good job, because she does. I don't know if the character, I wanted to see her go that way. Although I like it and I get it. So I'm struggling with that. But there's just one scene that happens and you're like, where did we just jump the shark? But it quickly gets back to where it needs to be. And that's all I'll say about the movie. Overall, I thought it was serviceable. It was good. Probably the best Halloween since the original. I guess you could say that.
I think that's been the consensus as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, sorry, one final note about Resurrection.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
When that movie came out, no, you're fine. When that movie came out in 2002, I really was hoping that Busta Rhymes would die.
Yeah, I know.
Super pissed off that he lived.
Yeah.
But,
well, you can't have everything.
As far as the zombie reboots, visually, I thought they were cool. Like, I get what he was trying to do, and they've got a really cool documentary. It's kind of what, if you own the movie, it's on the behind the scenes stuff, all the extra feature stuff, but you can go find like some of the stuff on YouTube. But there's a thing in there where he's being pretty candid about, coming into 2007, feeling the weight of this franchise on his shoulders, and someone basically saying, they kept telling him, well, make it more Rob Zombie, make it more Rob Zombie. And he's like, dude, I don't even know what that means. Or what they were wanting from him. But so I would say visually, I think I like that he was trying to put some more backstory, like with Michael Myers and how he became that. I don't mind Rob Zombie's vision. I think it's a very unique. He's just a really creative kind of guy. I think really the problem I have with those movies is just not really well directed. At the end of the day, he's not. Well, he's not greatest director. Yeah,
he's not a director, so to speak.
No.
He just kind of
He's gotten better, like Thousand Corpses and what is the Devil's Rejects, and so the movies are getting a little bit better. But it's like, if you ask me to go direct a movie, this is what you're going to get. So, but yeah, I didn't mind it so much. They're not my favorite, but they are what they are, and it's cool because Rob Zombie and John Carpenter are actually friends, and so Carpenter kind of blessed it and said, "Hey, dude, just go make your own version of it. Do whatever you need to do."
Well, at that point, it was like, "Hey, do whatever. I don't really care. I'm not involved." At this point,
I already got my check.
Exactly.
Get my royalties.
So don't do what you got to do. I don't really care at this point. Make it your own, which is kind of cool that he said make it your own, which I think is good, and I admire Rob for doing that. Like, kind of just trying to break the mold. I just think it wasn't executed.
Yeah, it felt short.
Yeah, nothing right. Directed better than I did, right? Because I didn't do one.
Right.
So
yeah, look at you. You're doing this show.
Yeah, exactly. Gotta go home.
The other things,
rethink my life. But
it happens to me every night. The other legacy stuff we have, video games. So there was a 1982 release of an Atari 2600 by Wizard Video Games. So they had already released a video game for the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. This was their second one, and this is really made up of a bunch of guys and girls, I guess, that came over from Apollo Games which is a kind of a major label that did some pretty good stuff, independent label that did a lot of great Atari 2600 games. They had left that company, came over and founded Wizard Video Games. They only put out 2 games. This was the second one. It bombed. It didn't do well at all because the game is really violent. You're basically, they never mentioned Michael Myers. It's got the Halloween name on it. They never actually mention that the antagonist in the video game is Michael Myers, although it's a serial killer wielding a knife. And they never mention that the woman in there is Laurie Strode, although she is a babysitter that's trying to save the kids. And the way the game played was you'd basically try to rescue 5 kids or stab Michael Myers twice in order to advance to the next level. Because the game was so gruesome, I think at one point if Michael Myers kills you, you actually see the blood splurting out of your head because you get decapitated. It never sold well. Retailers were too scared. They never put it on the shelves. There are rumors that there was copies that were made with literally a white label just slapped on it. I think in Ohio somewhere they were selling these things. And it was the sorry for the pun here, but the nail in the final coffins, the knife in the chest for Wizard Video Games. They went and filed bankruptcy shortly after this movie went out, after this game came out. Partly because the game didn't sell, but really in this time, a lot of companies were just falling by the wayside because Atari had gone belly up as well. So it's pretty rare. I went out and looked on eBay. They fetch a pretty penny in order to get that game. If you want, there's a couple of sites out there. I'll put a link in the show notes. There is a link out there.
I'm surprised you don't have this.
Play it. I don't.
I'm surprised.
It's extremely rare. I don't have the game.
Surprised.
But there's a Java version, like an emulated Java web browser version, where you can go play the game itself, which is kind of fun. I played for about 2 hours today.
Maybe I should do that at work. See what their reaction is at work.
That's kind of what I was. Yeah. There were some comics, and we won't get into those. There was one called. And I'm only going to mention this one because I kind of let off with it at the very beginning of the show. But there was some comics. There was one called The Blackest Eyes. The Devil's Eyes was part 2, and those are both lines from Loomis. He kind of mentions when he's talking about Michael Myers and mentions his eyes.
The evil has escaped.
Yeah.
How do you know he's evil, man? He's just a guy that had a breakdown. I mean, come on.
Right.
Yeah. But anyway.
But yeah, they did a number of comics all the way from 2003, 2008. You can go take a look at those. They did novelizations of parts 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I hear there's a 2018 novelization as well that's out. Not really into the horror genre, but if you guys are into that and you want to go read it, read some of the other context or some of the exposition that we don't get in the movies, that's available. They even did a young adults novel in 1997, not associated with the main story whatsoever. They were just kind of marketing and milking the name Halloween for those young adult novels. So, but really the big question here that I want to get to is, all right, Halloween versus Friday the 13th versus Nightmare on Elm Street. If you had to pick which one of those would you say is your overall favorite of the franchises?
Halloween, but I have a spot for Friday the 13th 1 and 2 because those are the first 2 that I saw. And then I think like you, I saw 2 and, I got subjected to these things because of my brother who's older than me by 5 years. Mm-hmm. So I was around my daughter's age, 7 or 8, and I got subjected to these things and I had nightmares and everything under the sun. So I was traumatized as a kid and it all goes back to my brother. But, But I would say Halloween gets the nudge because now that I'm older and you see what it was and how it relates to the real world, so to speak, it means more. But my favorite, I guess, slasher guy is probably Freddy. I mean, not Freddy, Jason. I'd go with Jason because of the hockey mask. But, I really would just wish we'd get a movie with the 3 of them and just let them go at it.
Well, we had the
Freddy versus
Jason versus
but no, you need all the 3 heavyweights going at it, man. You gotta bring them all in and kind of go at each other. And I had an argument with my buddy Brian, who I originally started the Cantina Cast, because he's in favor of Freddy would manipulate both of them, and I said Freddy's nothing in the dream world. He's something, but in the regular, no. I think I said Jason and Michael would team up to take him out. And then I think Jason would slightly beat out Michael because Jason is just massive. Like he's a big guy. He's bigger than Michael. Yeah. Although I said neither of them can quit. So I don't think, and you can't kill either one of them. So I guess it'll go on forever and ever. But I don't know. It'd be interesting to have that movie. I know there were rumors of them trying to do it, and I'm surprised it never got made. With at that point, with all 3 of the franchises at that point, they were milking it for all it's worth. Why not just put them all three together and just kind of do it? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think it's going to be interesting to see with the success of this movie because I think it.
Oh, the reboots of Friday the 13th are going to happen too. And you know.
Well, they've done those already, right? They did a Friday the 13th reboot and they've done a Nightmare on Elm Street reboot. And both of those were done by Michael Bay. So thank you for screwing that franchise.
Yeah. No, I mean like a real sequel will come out now. Like a real thing, reboot will come out.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was going.
Like
I think with the success of this movie, we'll probably see those.
Yeah, exactly. Like not stupidness. And that's hard to say because, you know, all those Friday the 13th part, whatever, were cheesy and awful. You know what? For some reason, Friday the 13th, the campiness, literally the campiness of it, and the stupid teenager thing, and the drugs, and the you know, all that. It was the 80s. Like it was personified of the stupidity of the 80s in a way when you're a teenager. I don't know. It was just it was something special for me when I watch it. I know the murdering, everything is kind of gruesome and everything, but it's over the top. I don't know. I love them. I think they're fun.
They are fun. And I would say that a Halloween franchise is probably my favorite, but I'm with you. I think even though I went through a Freddy Krueger phase, especially after the Dream Warriors came out and that whole scene where like he cuts and slits her wrists and then like pulls out her veins.
Oh, that was the one that threw me over that freaks me out.
Uses him like a puppet, right? Oh, that was just like, I was all in on Freddy for a while, until the Fresh Prince ruined that for me. But yeah, I would say that, Friday the 13th, at least Jason Voorhees is probably the cooler character, just because he's
You know what I liked about Friday the 13th, though? And I think a lot of people give it flack, and I don't think it deserves, like the original, the first one, is everyone was thinking, you know, when I was a kid, I knew of Jason. I didn't know it was the mother at first. And then Mrs. Voorhees turns out to be the killer. Yeah. I thought that was a cool thing. I thought that was awesome. Yeah. That was a great twist. Of course, the director gets a little bit of flack because he just the TNA and he directed porn and stuff, and this is what he wanted to kind of do. And I thought it was pretty good. I thought it was an interesting twist. I'd like a modern take on that, and I don't know, how would you do that with Jason? Like, how would you? I'd be interested to see how they tell that story, because Jason does die, and then he comes up and pulls, you know, the survivor, the final girl, into the pond there, the lake there.
Crystal Lake.
Yeah, Crystal Lake. And you know, I don't know if she dies. I can't remember now. I would assume she did. But how would you do that in the second one? Like when you continue it on? Like how would you, I don't know, it'd be interesting to see how they would pull that off.
I don't know. But yeah, I'm all for them remaking these now and doing it right and not having, you know,
Michael Bay
associated with this stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
But so I guess we'll end on just one final quick note. If you're a fan of Halloween, you know, John Carpenter has done a number of other movies. Go look at his catalog, his filmography. There's a ton of stuff out there. We've mentioned Assault on Precinct 13 in 1976. But some of the other favorites that I have are The Fog from 1980, Escape from New York in 1981, The Thing, which is still kind of like right up there in terms of creepy, scary thrillers, I guess, for me. That one came out in 82. And then my personal favorite from John Carpenter, more than Halloween, is actually Big Trouble in Little China, which came out in 86.
Oh, yeah, that's other than Halloween. That would be mine. I love that. I love that thing. It was awesome.
And then a very close third would be They Live with Roddy Piper in 1988.
That's another good one.
Yeah. So
he's very underrated director when you think about it.
Yeah, I think so too.
Because he was part of that class in SC where you had Spielberg, Lucas, you had him, like all those guys there. That was a special thing. Now that I'm getting older and they're getting older now, and things are changing, you see these new guys coming up, and I don't see any of them that can capture anyone's imagination like these guys did. So, which is crazy because they inspired all these other people that came after them, and it doesn't seem like things are clicking for whatever reason. But in any case,
I guess so. Big Trouble in Little China is your favorite then?
That it is, sir.
All right. All right. We'll end here. Final thoughts from you, Mr. Mike, on the Halloween franchise, John Carpenter, or anything else we've discussed?
The franchise is back, and there'll probably be a sequel. I'll leave it at that. Some way, some shape or form. The shape. See?
Shape.
Leave that in there.
Got it, yeah.
I recommend going to see. If you're a fan of Halloween, you definitely need to go see it. It's way better than anything we've seen in the last 20, 40 years, really. I'll be honest. Definitely check it out. Halloween's an awesome movie. I love watching it every Halloween. I have to watch it. And of course, my counterpart, Michael Myers, there, you know, how could I not love him? I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, again, for me, this is a really great franchise, and I do like all of the movies really in one way or the other. Some more than others, but yeah, it's a great series, and certainly one to watch every Halloween. Just kind of right up there with like It's a Wonderful Life at Christmas. It's about the same thing for me. So.
Definitely. Well, it's kind of just as depressing when you think about it. I mean, it's right up there. So maybe we're not too far off on that after all.
With that, we'll end the show. If you guys want to follow us, I'll put the links in there for Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Again, we are part of the Earglue Media Network. Thank you, Mike, for putting that together. We do have a website, eargluemedia.com, if you want to go check out that. And please contribute by, following all the other shows as well. We've got a lot of great creators that are putting a lot of work and time into cranking out shows every single week.
And more to come. More is coming.
And more to come. Yeah, we've got some stuff coming down the pipe here. So should be fun. If you want to join us on Discord, we'll put the link in there as well. We've got a basement section where you can talk about movies, music, cereal, whatever, patents for diapers, whatever you want to talk about in there as well.
No, we definitely don't want to do that.
Damn. All right, guys, we'll end the show and have a safe, happy Halloween. Hopefully Mike gets us out before Halloween. If not, it's going to be really weird.
Yeah.
Enjoy the holidays.
Yeah, later.
He will, and we'll be back. Bye. The views and opinions of the Basement hosts are of our own and are not in any way affiliated with Random House or Ernest Klein. All quotes, music, sounds, trademark, and copyrighted material referenced in the show are owned by the respectful companies and creators and are used by the Basement as fair use for entertainment purposes only. It would take me a month to read this whole disclaimer, but sad to say, I don't have that kind of time.